Hey everybody, John O'Connor here again, or as Dungeon Master 50 likes to call me, Double D. And today we're going to be talking about character building. More specifically, 26 questions that the DM needs to be asking the player and the player needs to be answering to their DM. For this episode I've decided to only do the first 13 because of the fact they're considerably more superficial than the secondary 13. These concern looks, appearances, and general personality, as opposed to character history, family background, and political views. With that, let's start with the first 3 questions: your character's race, gender, and age. Now, both in the real world and the fantasy world, there are different preconceived notions depending on where you fall on the spectrum. Now, these can be taken as far as xenophobia, ageism, sexism, racism, but they don't always have to be. An example of this would be if I'm a human coal miner, just got off work, and I'm sitting at a predominantly human bar enjoying my cheap ale of the day, and an elven female walks in, she's going to turn a couple heads. Not necessarily because wrong place, wrong time, it's just that we don't get a lot of them in here. And while looking at this particular individual, I'm going to turn my head, look at them, have a few thoughts, before they ever say anything to me. You know, my beliefs, my background are going to make me go, oh, they're an elf and they're a woman, naturally they should be acting like this. Whether that's right or wrong, doesn't matter. Those are just preconceived notions that the NPC me has. So those should always be some questions and ideas you iron out at the very beginning. How are other people going to look at you and see you? Next question is height and weight. Although these first 4 questions all can be answered on a character sheet, I'm not always going to have access to it, and sometimes I want a quick reference point. That's why I put them on this questionnaire. Subsequently, if you're a female character, I also want to know the size and shape of your bust. Not for any one particular reason, but it's because this is just, again, something that somebody's going to see when you walk in the room. Along those lines, also, I ask, tell me about your hair, both for men and female, and, how long is it, what color is it, and how do you style it? Again, something that most people don't take the time to consider. It's just actions they do during the day. But when you're building a character, you have to remember this is how people are going to see you. Also, if you're a male, I want to know, are you babyface? Do you have a 5 o'clock shadow? Do you have, a nice epic dwarven beard? Again, not a lot of time and effort's put in this in your day-to-day routine, but when you're building a character, there should be. I understand there are some people who take a lot of time, trim their beard or style their hair, but for a lot of us, it's just routine, something that we do during the day. Question number 6 has to deal with once you sit down with somebody and get a little more personal. What's your eye color? Is it a common brown or green that everybody has? Is it a blue if you're human, or if you're elven? Do you have some exotic yellow or silver? Just something that someone's going to notice and, want to have a conversation about, or, ask you something about. Question 7. Do you have any scars, birthmarks, or tattoos worth noting that people can see? Depending on the placement of any of these, it's going to break down into 2 categories. If you have a prominent scar somewhere on you that other people can see, it's going to add to your reputation or the preconceived, who is this person? And with that, if you have this huge gashing scar across your chest and you always, just wear an open vest, people might perceive you to be some kind of badass, or, that you saw some kind of battle or war. But on the same note, if that scar, tattoo, or birthmark was somewhere concealed most of the time, and you've been adventuring with somebody for a couple months, and you finally get some R&R time, and you're just relaxing, say in a river somewhere, you finally disrobe, and there's this big tribal tattoo on your right shoulder that's normally covered, someone might want to ask you about that and go, hey, well, can you give me a little background? Can you give me a little story about that? So it really starts a conversation on 2 different fronts. If it's prominent, it's going to be a conversation you're going to have a couple times with different NPCs. And if it's something a little more concealed, it's conversation you're going to have maybe later down the road with a close friend, or an NPC you got to know, or an adventurer that's been with you for a while. So it all depends on how you want to play that character. If it's something they're going to show off or something they're just going to hide away. Alright, next I got a set of 4 questions that I absolutely adore. It's the same question, just with one word changed. And it's, does your character have any fears, vices, virtues, or quirks? I encourage all players to have one of each, more if they like. But it really adds a different element to your character. It gives them different facets to their personality. Gambling and drinking are always fun vices to have. A common virtue is I don't kill kids, they have to be a certain age if I'm going to, fight them kind of thing. Fears, I love people who take the arachnophobia fear just because there's the spell Summon Swarm of Spiders, and it doesn't matter how epic you make your character, if you put afraid of spiders, and I use Summon Spiders, you're going to have to think for a second, do I really want to get in this battle, or am I going to burn my fireball for the day and just wipe these things out? So, phobias, I like to use them against my players sometimes, but I also like to bring them up with their virtues, give them opportunities to use that. Corks, I like when people get creative with corks. I'm very generic on that one because I'm like, my character doesn't like to stay still. They tap a lot. Silly things like that. But I've had some characters my players have played that had some pretty interesting quirks, like Karlea. She's right now playing a half-elf, half-nymph who has a fear/quirk of ugly people. She doesn't feel comfortable around them. She doesn't like to engage in dialogue with them. She comes from a very vain group of individuals. But being in the real world outside of her village has kind of toned that down a bit. But orcs, half-orcs, no, she's not going to do anything with them. She'll throw her fireball, she'll use her scorching ray, but she is not going to sit down and negotiate with any of them because it's just not her nature. The nymph side of her is like, that thing's ugly, get it away. After those 4, next 2 questions is where you start getting a little more serious, a little more, a little less superficial. Number 12. Sorry, I don't have any notes on me right now. I had some notes earlier, but I thought it'd just be better to freestyle this. So number 12, what's your character's name? More to the point, I want a full title that I'll know as the DM, and I want to know what you're going to tell the other players you want to be called, or how you want to be addressed. I've always liked the idea that maybe you're on the lam, and here's your real name that you give your DM, and here's the name you're going to give to your friends and your other players. I also like the idea of maybe you have an uncomfortable first name, like Leslie or Meredith, so you go by your second name, Strom, Avalius, you want something strong and powerful, you don't like that first name. So it always it opens the door for later on, either someone who knows you intimately is going to call you by that awkward first name, or someone you owe money to is going to come by and go, I have a warrant for so-and-so, and the rest of the players are going to go, who's that? And then you have that one character just go. It always opens the door for more fun conversations. Last question on this one is one for story building. It's definitely for story building for me. I want to know your character's sexuality. I want to know which way they swing. Are they heterosexual? Are they homosexual? Bisexual? Or hell, are they even asexual? Should I even spend any time building love interest or people you might be attracted to? This is always a fun thing to do. Back to Karlea. She's going to get mad at me. You talked about me in your video. Her character is the half-elf half-nymph who only liked attractive people, but she was a heterosexual. So, through the course of this story, in my campaign, which is coming to an end pretty soon, she fell in love with a lowly human named Atlas Green. It was very much one of those things that his personality overcame his common basic looks. She doesn't like ugly things. He wasn't ugly, but she likes pretty things. He kind of wasn't there. So at first he was there where she could talk to him and have a conversation with him. And once she got to know the guy, she got an attachment to him. The reason I like doing that is because NPCs that are most of the time, oh, they're just throwaway NPCs, or it's, you know, this person that you've met a couple times, can be used for something greater. Atlas has been kidnapped and actually turned against her now. So it creates this real big moral dilemma, which really brings you into the game and takes you out of the number of spells you have, the number of hit points you have. It's the idea of, am I going to kill this person that my character loves deeply, or am I going to try to risk them at the cost of maybe not getting the killing blow, or, you know, losing more health than I'm comfortable with? What am I willing to do to make my character happy, not necessarily me? It really brings you into that moment. So those are the first 13 questions. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback, what you think of them. Please look forward to soon, maybe tomorrow or the next day, I'll have the other list up. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.